Welcome to today's episode, the podcast where we discuss the most recent installments of a different series every show. Today is Friday, November 14th. Thanksgiving is around the corner, but today is actually a pretty important day in history. It's the day that Charles J. Guiteau was put on trial for the assassination of U.S. President James Garfield back in 1881.
Yeah, he didn't die until the following year, right? 1882?
James Garfield? James Garfield was dead by September.
I'm talking about Guiteau.
Oh, Guiteau, he was hanged, at some point the next year. He pled insanity, and they were not buying that in the court system. However, other people had gotten away with insanity. It's just the fact that I think he represented himself. And so it's like, it's really hard to represent yourself and say, I'm sane now, but a couple months back, I just got a few loose screws. However, he did have some doctors that supported that claim. His sister tried to approach the widow of James Garfield and get her to come to his defense. She did not like that. And so they didn't really talk about that in Death by Lightning. We didn't see the trial. We kind of glossed through a lot of the stuff post Garfield getting shot, which I was a little disappointed by.
Well, also the brain, right? They tried to
brain.
look at his brain to see if he was insane
Yes.
years later.
Once Guiteau was dead, they cut him open, and just like CTE, they were looking for signs that maybe crazy existed.
I know the creator of this TV show actually saw the brain in real life while he was writing it. He said he spent some hours with it.
Okay. I don't know why he would have needed to do that, but they do say it in the book. So this is all based on The Destiny of the Republic, the full title being A Tale of Madness, Medicine, and the Murder of a President. I read it. I would highly recommend it. You not only get the story of Guiteau and Garfield, but you also get Alexander Graham Bell and the science of the time, the Gilded Age. You get post Reconstruction. Like, it's just a full out, more fleshed out story, which I think deserved more than what this Netflix show gave it. I'm not saying the Netflix show is bad. I would still show it to kids in a classroom setting. Think it gets like 65% of the stuff right. People will walk away with more knowledge than I knew about Garfield when I took high school. You would have asked me about Garfield a few weeks ago, and I would have been like, that's just the cat.
If you remember when we did the Manhunt podcast, I was trying to list all the presidents and orders. I stopped at Rutherford B. Hayes.
Did you just got stuck there?
Yeah, I got stuck there.
Okay, so from Hayes onward, go ahead and do it right now.
Okay, well, the next one was James Garfield. Chester Arthur after that, Grover Cleveland, Benjamin Harrison, Grover Cleveland, and then I get kind of stuck here, McKinley, Roosevelt, and then Taft, Woodrow Wilson, Warren G. Harding, Calvin Coolidge, Herbert Hoover, and then after that was FDR. After FDR was Harry S. Truman. Then it went to Dwight D. Eisenhower, John F. Kennedy, Lyndon Baines Johnson, Nixon, Ford, Carter, Reagan, George H.W. Bush, Clinton, George W. Bush, Obama, and then Trump, Biden, Trump.
Cool.
Ever since that has happened, I've been trying to get it down, and yeah, I think I finally got it. So,
yeah, good job. So what's your favorite president out of the ones you just said?
Well, I do like Taft because I know that
his bathtub.
The bathtub.
Stuck in the bathtub?
That's the one fact that I know about.
I heard that he was a bad president, but that he was good in the Supreme Court or wherever he went next. It's funny because that 1880s period, or like around the 1800s post Civil War, I knew that Grant was really corrupt, but this actually gives you some reason as to why he was corrupt. The people who surrounded him, Roscoe Conkling, he plays the villain in this show. We get more backstory with him. We also learn how he dies. They kind of say it in the show at the very end. They say he died in a blizzard, but in the book, they give more understanding. He was like a fitness guru back then. He believed in keeping his body in shape.
He would have a YouTube channel that was just about getting gains.
Yeah, that would be him today. But he got stuck in a snowstorm and he decided to just walk it off. Like he was just going to walk right through it, and he survived. And then like a week later, he died of like pneumonia or something.
Yeah, because they say in the show it's just a quick sentence, but it seems like there was a lot more to his death.
He's also actually a bigger villain in the show than he is in the book. He's about 1/4 of what the rest of, like, the doctors are the big villains in the book. Guiteau is obviously a villain in the book. Conkling would probably be like one of the offshoots villains. Chester Arthur was not represented really as a villain at all. He does have a 180-degree turn from what he was doing with Conkling, because he was part of that whole system, the spoil system, which was started by Andrew Jackson.
Was that like trying to get money into politics?
The idea was that if your party won, then you reap the spoils of that. You are able to basically give all your friends positions rather than people of merit. And so Garfield came in on an anti-corruption policy. That was part of the reason why he was able to sway the crowd in 1880. the first episode, I think, does both a good and bad job of representing Garfield. I feel like who plays Garfield in this?
Michael Shannon.
Yes, the man from Ohio. He's at the Republican convention, and they condense his speech because he's supposed to be endorsing Sherman for the next president. This is after Hayes, right?
Right.
And the Republican Party has had a stranglehold on the entire presidencies since Lincoln. Now, he was the first Republican, and it's because no one wants to be associated with the South and the Democrats, they've been able to hold power, even despite Grant's clear corruption surrounding. So Grant is actually also up to become president, the nominee again. And it's up to really this speech that Garfield gives, which turns everybody's attention toward him rather than any other candidate. And it takes 36 votes. But by the end of that convention, he is the candidate for president.
Well, my question is, I was wondering if the book talked about this because, Garfield, he gives the speech, and then it seemed like, at least in the TV show, at the very, very end, like it's a quick sentence about how he's obviously talking about Sherman, but it seemed like it almost from the way that they did it in the show, he was talking about himself and then kind of decided at the last minute to be like, oh yeah, I'm talking about Sherman. I was wondering if the book, if like it possibly could have been the speech that he was given, he was like trying to put himself up there.
So a couple things with that is I think that the book is definitely trying to prove the point that Garfield was a great guy, but not just because he was like this grounded dude, but because he was super smart. It goes through his life from his dad dying when he was a kid to him actually questioning his own mortality. He was super smart when he went to college after almost drowning. He decided to change his whole life and he became like a Union general. But when he was in college, he actually took over the school by like his fourth year or something. He became the president of the college. Like he was a bright guy.
So many historians say he would have been an amazing president, great public speaker. A lot of people liked him.
You look in the past and you look at his opinions and you're just like, okay, he wasn't a racist. That's a huge win for back in the day.
Because even when you're talking about presidents that people would probably put in the S tier, even like George Washington even had like slaves, you know?
Of course, but that was even earlier. So, but like in the 1880s, he did run on this progressive agenda and he was putting the right people in, and Conkling was coming out trying to stop him. I just feel that the way that he's represented in the show is too much like, oh, he never wanted to run. He's so humble, and that we never see sort of his humor. We never see how cool he is.
That's interesting to me because so many people talked about how there is comedy in this TV series, and I feel like, especially for such like a dramatic retelling of it, that they maybe should have cut it out. But you're saying that it would like that you didn't get a lot of that.
I feel like they simplified him and they tried to give Guiteau too much of a leeway. They gave Matthew Macfadyen too much room to run with because they wanted to make his character a lot like Tom from Succession, where he was just like, what about me? You know, like
it's
that
always
type of thing.
One word when I think about Tom, which is smarmy. Smarmy, but like weirdly likable. And I agree with you. Whenever I saw Matthew Macfadyen, it was too closely aligned with his other character.
In the book, he was not likable at all. Guiteau was like, he's a crazy dude, and he just was so full of himself, and there just wasn't that much decency. But in this, they go out of their way to show like multiple scenes of trying to make people sympathize.
He's like hanging out with like Chester Arthur, right?
He makes best friends with the VP in this. He hangs out with in the TV series. He hangs out with Lucretia, people that he never met, or if they met them, it was passing. It was not like they hung out, like you said, with Chester Arthur for a full night out.
No historical records say that actually happened.
He did like accost, I guess, the White House staff, got kicked out of there. Everybody knew he was crazy dude. But it was still obviously a very big surprise when he decided to buy a gun and then shoot the president. He says that he did it because he had a dream one day that things would be better if he did so. But this is the same guy who got kicked out of a sex cult because no one wanted to have sex with him. Like,
it seems very weird.
They start that off in the third episode. I thought that was probably his best definitive part of his performance because it was true and it didn't feel like we were just paying it lip service. If they had done less shoehorning of his character and made it more about, this is a story about Garfield, this little teeny guy who assassinated or like shot him. And then we also spread it around to Alexander Graham Bell. And we also talked about like James Lister. I think his name is James Lister, but the science dude who was like progressively trying to put antiseptic into the mythology of doctors at that point. But yeah,
And that's always what I feel like is kind of the problem with these retellings that have like A-list cast members. Because sure, you get like Betty Gilpin or you get Nick Offerman. A lot of these people, like I think Nick Offerman, like Civil War. A lot of these people like to do the political TV shows, but then it seems like the script is almost doing a disservice to what it's actually about because you're trying to give these like talented actors like their big part in the show.
I completely agree with you. I would say that Shea Whigham and Bradley Whitford,
Yeah.
A-plus performances. I enjoyed Conkling, even though they like made him a bigger deal. I really enjoyed Bradley Whitford playing sort of Blaine, the Secretary of State. I think he embraced that character rather well. Nick Offerman and Michael Shannon, solid performances. They were just written in a way where I feel like they could have. Michael Shannon wasn't given enough to do, and Chester Arthur was given too much. Like we
Yeah.
only needed one scene really at the end to show him so sad about the president's death or that he was shot and really wanting to change. His whole life up until then had been, let me be a corrupt lawyer dude who works for Conkling and endorses the spoil system, to turning about face and saying, I am going to try to be the best president possible. It is the most courageous like move that he could have done, but because of that they spent 4 episodes trying to pre-show that. They tried to like really endorse that idea with Nick Offerman. They were spoon feeding that message to you, and they were doing it with the subtlety of a sledgehammer.
Right. No, I know. He sometimes would just say straight out what his
He
objective
was fun to watch though, so that's why his. And then same with Gilpin. I feel like her portrayal of the relationship of Garfield and Lucretia. It's true that she got sick during his time. She was very supported. They were in love by the time that he was president, but very early on in their relationship, I think the time that they had their first daughter, they were not on good points. Like I think he even said it was a mistake to marry her. He had an affair. She stuck with him through it. So they gave her some of his actual lines. Like they lifted lines from the books and had her saying them. And I would say the most egregious it got was at the end when she shows up to see Guiteau before he's hanged, which never happened in real life. And I was going to go off about how much I hated that because that like completely manufactured history, almost as bad as when Chester Arthur tried to resign in this show.
Yeah, right.
Even though
And
he
that
never,
never happened.
I don't
Yeah.
think that ever happened in real life. But then I forgave it. I forgave the show for the because of Betty Gilpin. She did such a great job, and she did what I think the book was trying to do without just straight out saying it, which was, you guys have learned history and you've learned about respecting Lincoln and the founding fathers, and this dude deserved so much respect, and he's never, ever, ever going to get it. And so she kind of broke the fourth wall and just kind of said that straight out. And it's your fault, Guiteau. And I actually, usually I hate those type of lines, but I think her acting was the thing that really brought it over the edge. And like that deserved to be in the show. So that went from being a real big con to being a pro in the fact that it wasn't actually true to history.
Is the last episode really the only one that has plot to it? Because I'm assuming the first episode ends with Michael Shannon getting, or
No, let's go through the
Garfield.
episodes
Yeah.
real quick. So episode 1 is called The Man from Ohio, and we focus on the 1880 Republican Convention. He comes in there, Garfield comes in there, he's supposed to be endorsing Sherman. He has a breach of consciousness where he feels like he has to give this long speech. They condense it severely too much in the show because for you to be believable that everybody would turn around and make you president, you would think that it would take more than a minute with swelling music in the background. But there was a guy who yelled out, "We want you." So that
actually was
straight from the book.
because they shot that speech twice, and that was supposed to be like a big day. I think that the creator said that was the biggest day that
I
they
could
had.
tell they wanted it to be a moment, and Michael Shannon's delivery of it didn't, to me, feel like it was all that good. Episode 2, and one last thing about that is they put Guiteau in that scene at the very end when Garfield is leaving to get in the carriage to go back home or whatever, and he's kind of stunned at what's just occurred, and he's like, "Congratulations!" And it's like that. You never met Guiteau that early. I really wish they had almost not had Guiteau in 2 episodes and introduced him in episode 3. I feel like that would have been a better way and really highlighted the fact that Garfield like his past and gone into Alexander Graham Bell, Joseph Lister, not James Lister. Yes, and
I didn't see the full show, but I did think that after the speech, when it started to come down to
The
them
votes,
counting, I thought
that
that
was
that
fun.
segment of it was pretty interesting.
Probably, yeah. One of my favorite parts of the series was when they represented the 36 votes that they had to do. over and over and over and over again, and how it started off with just one person.
And then he ended up switching. Like,
Sorry,
the second time he, like, switched, right? And then he went
because
back to
Garfield
it?
asked him not to vote for him, and then by the end, everybody was like, "We don't care if you want it, man. You're getting our nomination." The episode 2, they show him actually winning the White House. Conkling is super pissed off, so he tries to do everything he can to stop his picks for a cabinet.
Is Conkling just wanting to stop Garfield because Garfield is running on the, like, anti-corruption
Yeah,
side?
Conkling feels like they do the pretty good accurate portrayal of him here as far as he owns the New York ports. He wants his continuing funding while also being like super powerful dude who kind of pulls the strings everywhere. He does the stupidest thing, which is announced in the book, where he was like, "My plan is to go into the Senate and freak everybody else out by quitting. And as soon as I quit, everybody will throw their hands in the air and they won't know what to do and they'll welcome me back." And the exact opposite happens. He walks in there, he quits, and everybody laughs. That's the way it's said in the book. They kind of do that in the TV series, but they also try to add some more like crazy stuff with the affair that he's having with this other chick. She's famous, but she's not really talked about too much in the book. And then so in the second episode, you watch him get his cabinet, Garfield get his cabinet together, and Guiteau do some stupid stuff. And then episode 3 called Casus Belli, which I had to look up, but that's like the cause for stuff, like the reason why Guiteau would have killed him, I
Right.
guess.
Yeah, so there was, like, this big article, I think that they, like, did 10 different camera setups, and they were talking a lot about the scene between Guiteau and Garfield. I'm not sure if it ever actually happened in real life.
There's only one time in the show where they actually like sit down and speak to
Right,
one
and it's a
another.
speed, and I think Guiteau says something like, "Teach me," or something, and that was supposed to be, like, a really big scene. Like, I think the editors were talking about comparing it to Al Pacino and Robert De Niro in Heat.
Well, I can understand that that is the gravitas of those two actors trying to, in a way, show Garfield at his best while also kind of making it so that Guiteau hates him, you
Yeah.
know? And it's very hard to do. So I can understand why. And also, I don't think there's much written. I do think that Garfield and Guiteau had spoken because Garfield would take these appointments at the White House every single day and spend hours and hours and hours waiting on the common man to pop up and say, "Hey, I want a position
It
here at the
is
White House."
it is so insane because I know around that time they didn't have as much security. So the fact
Yeah,
that
there's no security.
Garfield would just walk into these
Right.
rooms.
That's why it's called Death by Lightning. It's not because he was like going around with Benjamin Franklin's kite. It's because he says in the show, like, you're more likely to get struck by lightning than getting shot. It's just part of the job or being famous. Like, that's why he just walked around like normal. It wasn't until like McKinley before they started giving people bodyguards and stuff.
One of my questions was, why do you think the name changed? So that makes more sense.
Which name?
From the biography or from the book to the TV series?
Right. So yeah, that third episode is where they meet, and then by now I'm kind of getting a little anxious because I'm like, when are you going to shoot him? Like, when are we going to see the substantive part of the book, which I think was how the doctors treated Garfield, which was horribly, but also I was just waiting for that Dr. Death scenario where we watch a good amount of time where the reason the air conditioner got its like kickstart into becoming a thing was because in Washington it was incredibly hot. So when he got shot in the summer and they needed to keep his body cooler, they brought in like naval officers or like engineers to come in and try to, with these huge blocks of ice, create a mechanism with fans to lower the temperature. And
That would have been
they
cool to
were
see.
sort of successful. They got it down to like 80 degrees, which is still pretty warm, and it would be very humid. And then they like cordoned him off to like the small little piece of the White House where his doctor, who was horrible, just said no one's allowed to speak to him, and he's not allowed to talk at all because it'll hurt his diaphragm or something. It's a crazy story and really worth the read. But they do show a consolidated like spark notes form of it where he's being cut into to like relieve the pus that was coming out of his body and stuff, but that's all in episode 4 after we see him shot. I think the actual shooting they did pretty well. It came out of nowhere when he was walking to the
Yeah,
train.
right. It was shocking, and then like he checks his arm, right, because he was shot in the arm first.
That's all true too, except I think he screams when he gets shot in the arm, like he's like, "What the?" And then like
Oh, it wasn't just realizing that bullet hole was in a suitcase in front of
right.
him.
No, that was giving him a little bit more credit than him realizing that he hadn't been shot once beforehand. I don't think it stayed in his body though, like the other bullet.
Yeah, no, I think it showed in the TV series that grazed him. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, so then I think Guiteau gets arrested in episode 4 almost immediately after he shoots him. The crowd is trying to hang him. That's why he asked to be sent directly to jail. And then when they take him to jail and they're admitting him, that's when they find out that no one had taken the gun from him. But in the show, they make a comedy moment where he literally takes
He
the gun out
pulls it out.
and he's just like, "You should have this."
That broke me in the sense of like my suspension of disbelief because even though I didn't read the book, I knew that that was fake. My question is that after Guiteau shot him, it seemed like he ran out the building for like a quick second, and it made me think, was the show trying to say that like at very first he was just wanting to like get away from the
Oh,
cops?
absolutely. If he could have gotten out of there, I'm sure he would have. But as soon as he saw the crowd forming and the officers quarantined him for his own safety, the crowd was literally about to lynch the dude. Like everybody was so concerned about Garfield and was like, he killed the president. But at the same time, it was weird because Guiteau thought he was telling the police, and we didn't see this in the show, to like send messages to other generals because he didn't just say, "Oh, Chester Arthur is going to be president, my best friend." He said like, "Bring them here, bring the generals here, and they'll free me." Like he was
He thought that
under
that was
the.
gonna work.
I guess so. He thought that he was going to be the hero of the day once people realized what happened. Other things we didn't get to see in the show, which I was disappointed at, was like his kids finding out because in real life, what they did was that his youngest, were like
Talking
on a
about Garfield's
train.
kids, right?
Yeah. We're on a train, and the whole world, the whole United States, obviously people were running through the streets. It was their 9/11 at the time. It was just like, oh no, again, like Abraham Lincoln, people were freaking out. But this train, as it would go station to station, even though everybody was aware of it, everyone outside was told, don't make a fuss. Don't make it obvious that anything is wrong. And they didn't. And so that was something I was waiting to see in the show. We never got to see it. Also, his wife speeding to go meet her husband. They do show her traveling, but they never show the fact that her train almost got derailed. Like literally, the
That's how
guy
fast it
was.
was going?
Well, it was an express train because they wanted to get her there
Yeah.
fast, and they weren't sure if he was going to die that day. One of the book's lines that they did put in the TV series was like, "You have a 1 out of 100 shot," and he was like, "Let's make that one shot count." You
Yeah, he
know?
was like, "I'm gonna take that chance."
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that was directly lifted from the pages, so I like that. But when she was coming over, the guy was going too fast around one of the corners and ripped up the whole track. And it was a miracle that she survived. There's just so much stuff that I wish they'd included, but the stuff that they did, for the most part, I was very okay with. So I've got like a mixed opinion on the show.
From what I understand, it was like when it came to the broad strokes, really the show was, by and large, pretty accurate. But when it got to the details, and I'm not just saying this from your review, I'm just saying this from like a kind of everyone's point of view. When it got to the details, that's really when the show wasn't correct. Is
Yeah,
that fair?
well, that is fair. Also, I can understand why they didn't include you didn't necessarily need to have the Alexander Graham Bell thing, and you did show him in a cameo, but I think the metal detector storyline would have been really interesting to hone in on.
I think the fan thing that you were talking about would have been interesting to see as well.
So many hidden facts, like the fact that Abe Lincoln's kid was present during his assassination, then McKinley's assassination. The only one,
Three different presidents.
the only person who's ever had that afforded to them, it probably scarred him for life. He would have needed therapy. But so overall, I think I said it's a 65% accuracy. I would give the show a 6 out of 10.
Oh, 6 out of 10. So it still passes for and there wasn't like one episode to you that like really was better than any of the others. Would you say
I think
it
every
was?
episode had a moment that I
Okay.
liked. Again, Betty Gilpin's ending in episode 4. I think episode 1 with with the count. I think episode 3 with the beginning part where Guiteau was being shamed by everybody. I think they did a good job with that. Episode 2, I think even with Conkling when he decided to turn and help Garfield with his presidency, I thought that was pretty neat too. So yeah, there was good scenes and then there were bad scenes, and altogether, I think the show is worthy. It's okay.
I know that David Benioff and D.B. Wise were actually executive producers for this, just like
Because of
how.
the dragons, I know.
Well, no, but because of the deal that they signed back in 2019. But does the name Matt Ross, who directed all 4 episodes, mean anything to you?
Why should it?
because he's Gavin Belson in Silicon Valley, but he's actually directed a
Oh, okay.
lot. He even directed the Captain Fantastic movie back in 2016. Overall, though, the TV series has gotten good reviews as a 7.8 on IMDb, 91% on Rotten Tomatoes, 89% audience score. Forbes called it Netflix's best new show. And then there was a USA Today that said that the show simply is something that you cannot miss. But then you also have places like AV Club that gave the series as a whole a C plus.
Yeah,
So
like, there were some strange, things that they decided to throw in there, like PTSD shots of him during the war, a scene with him with his daughter, Garfield's daughter, stepping in and fighting for Chinese immigrants. Like, it was just kind of, like, random stuff that instead of seeing the background of Garfield, like, almost drowning and deciding to change his whole life towards politics, things that you would have thought would like gear this guy more towards like his future. They decided to just kind of weed out and include other things.
I know you said it, but to me, like when I saw 4 episodes and I saw how much like it seemed like they were kind of filling it with filler, I was just like, why make it so short? Like,
Yeah,
why
I mean,
not?
they didn't. His private secretary has a thing going on with his daughter, which they know they don't do really too much background with. His mom is a giant part of his life, and she's alive at this point, and I think she even lives in the White House. And I don't think we ever really see her character at all. And yeah, again, Todd Lincoln, that kid. You got other doctors. They consolidated all the doctors. There was one. The Bliss guy was the most evil of them
Yeah.
all, but like there was a whole team that they had there. They sped through the autopsy. I'm highlighting on the things it didn't do, but it did, like you said, get the broad strokes right. So we could do this all day, going
Okay.
back and forth on that type of stuff.
Okay, so a 6 out of 10 from you against 7.8 on IMDb. That's about all I have.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. Bye.
Bye.